We're going to open the meeting. We'll start with the facilities update. Mr. Eric Siebert.
I put together just a brief summary of the points so everybody can see what's going on.
Thanks, sir.
Sure. Sorry.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Sir.
Thank you. Mr. Polito just wanted me to speak briefly about where we're at with our facility plans and what we plan to do in the coming year with the architects in terms of what types of construction are going to start in the district. So there's a fairly significant list that we plan on starting on in the spring of this year, and it would include teacher access controls at each of the schools. Most of the schools, it's a single door elementary school. Some of the schools have two, and then Erie High has 4 or 5 doors that we plan on making access control. We plan on doing full asphalt replacement at both McKinley and at Lincoln. Both are in horrible disrepair as far as asphalt goes. There's also going to be some money budgeted for repairs at other schools that have some pothole issues. We have some emergency generators that are in badly need of repair. So at Lincoln, Erie High, and Edison, we plan on doing projects related towards the emergency generators, transfer switches, and emergency panels. Roofs and masonry work, which go together, we plan on doing work at Wilson, Harding, and the Service Center, all of which have active leaking, and we hope to stave off any damage that might be caused by further infiltration. There are stadium improvements planned, and that may be the first project we actually delve into, which are related towards concrete repairs. So it's a lot of masonry work, caulking, repairs to masonry, press box, improvements to the restrooms, and followed by the turf. We plan on replacing all the turf at the stadium. The turf there is 12 years old, and it has most of its useful life gone. Coal bunker infills, and then Erie High School's potable hot water system. That's one thing that we could get into without affecting a lot of systems. It's primarily the boiler and the storage vessel that are bad there. During the school year, we anticipate that the designs will be far enough along that we can begin the partial renovations at Erie High School and at Collegiate Academy. At Erie High School, a lot of it is related towards the HVAC systems, providing cooling in some of the infilled areas which become terribly hot. Improvements that will relate back to us having an improved heating system at that school as well. There's also some electrical repairs there as well as lighting issues that we plan to work on. And at Collegiate Academy, it's primarily structural issues related to the mezzanine, the promenade, and the gyms and natatorium that are underneath. So those won't quite be developed quickly enough that we can start that in the summer, but we do intend on doing something there this school year.
Any questions? John, just?
What is teacher access control?
Okay, so we found that we have a lot of issues in the mornings when teachers come into the building. There's doors that need to be left unsecured so that teachers have access to the building. We found that to be an unacceptable hazard. So the intent is to put an electronic stripe on certain doors that are close to the areas where they come into the building and provide them either a fob or a card access so that they can enter the building safely.
Thanks.
Mayor, can you talk a little bit about what the architects are doing now, some of the consultants that are coming out into the district?
Sure. So we've had a stream of them. So just this week we had architects that were at the stadium. They brought in experts in concrete restoration to look at the different areas where we have concrete spalling off of the stairwells, and primarily it's all due to the railings. being embedded in the concrete and moisture infiltrating and causing freezing and cracking. So they did a lot of work at the stadium. We've also had multiple inspections of roofs, and now they're getting down to the details of the roofs, and probably would be further along, but when you deal with the roof, you also need to deal with HVAC, ventilation types of issues, exhaust fans that might be failing, things of that nature. So that would be engineers and architects looking at that so that they can develop a bid that's going to be very specific and complete. Additionally, they have been doing a topographical survey at both Lincoln and McKinley to make sure that the specification for asphalt will be accurate for what our needs are, so that we don't end up with any change orders and things of that nature. So that's been the primary recently. We also have meetings scheduled for next week to do some tours of other schools, all of which is designed so that they can determine the most efficient way to repair or replace various pieces of equipment.
And we did have a conference call with the architects this afternoon, and they are on track to do all this work this summer. However, as Eric kind of alluded to, they are running into a few challenges because our buildings are so old and the plans aren't necessarily there for them to do the work. So I think as we move through this, we're just going to have to be a little patient with them as they do this. And sometimes when they're, initially they were talking about maybe having the specs done here in February or March, and we may be pushing that off a month or two because of some of these unexpected challenges. But we'd rather have them take a little more time and get it done right rather than rush through try to get it done on the original timeline.
Okay. Yes. Go ahead, Tom.
I guess a couple of things. When they do the field at the stadium, are they going to put a track in? Because we don't have a track. Now,
I don't think there's suitable space for a track at the stadium.
You'd have to
Not with the
tear out
current
seating.
seating, they'd have to tear out a tier of the seating around the whole center of the stadium.
So will there be a plan to do it at Erie High School then?
That's something that we're looking into. That's something Daria was exploring before she left. Apparently there is some grant funding available through the NFL and maybe some other organizations to maybe help renovate the Litnikoff Field. We did have the architects draw up something for that renovation, which would include turf and an all-weather track. So we're hoping when we have our new person on board that person will be able to pick that up and continue on. Right now, it's our hope that that's something that we could do through a majority of fundraising, and it's something that PEPS is very interested in taking on.
Because we don't have a track at all for the kids to do it.
That's right.
And then the other one, will there be any cement work at Erie High School in the front of that? Because that just looks...
The steps.
Steps
Yeah,
and
the front
that
steps
it
are
just looks
terrible.
horrible.
I'll talk to the
railings
architects
are all
about it and
rusted
see
out.
what they can do. We have been having some repairs done to the railings in front of the building because we had some issues there and we recognized how loose the buildings were. We could also get our masons to do some repairs, so I think we're going to have to weigh how much we have going on, whether it's a possibility of doing that or whether it might cause us issues with future projects that they're involved in. Probably won't because it's such a standalone thing, but I'll talk to the architects about it.
Robbie.
And I just have one question.
Yeah.
Just when it comes to the stadium improvements, I have a request that you put together what is specifically going to be done there, and then submit that to the stadium commission so that they're aware of what's going on a little bit, because we really don't have, there was a little discussion, but no one really had any specifics of what was going to be done.
Sure, I can do
So
that.
I'd appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
As long as we're talking about tracks and fields, I'm wondering if there's any plan for a soccer field here for the students. Right now, they have to go all the way up to Jefferson to play soccer.
Not at this time.
Not this time.
No, I guess it hasn't been on our radar right now.
Is there room for one?
The practice field is out here, right?
Football practice.
So I don't know. I mean, can they use that as a soccer field as well?
I think they could.
That's what we currently do. So they practice or play soccer on most of our football fields at one point or another. So I know they do it at Jefferson and Wilson, and certainly at even at the stadium, you'll see soccer played there all season. So
Could you have somebody look into whether or not that field is big enough? If it's a matter of just lining it, probably something we could do.
And I know the field behind Grover Cleveland, because I coached it for years. The problem is it was never maintained. I coached there for probably 15 years. I bet you 9 out of 10 times the grass is that high. It hadn't been maintained for years. I don't know whether they still do that. I don't know how any of that stuff works.
Because we only had so many laborers to cut grass.
I don't know. I'm just saying that it was horribly maintained.
Well,
I'm just telling you,
it's kind of tough when you have 23 buildings and only 2 laborers.
I'm just telling you, the kids that are 3 foot tall, and the grass is, at their thigh. It was embarrassing.
we'll try to do better.
Thanks. I'm just saying, I'm making the observation.
I know there were issues last year
We'll try to
early with the heating system there as well. Has that been taken care of, or?
Yes. I think that the complaints from Piper Burley have gone way down. We spoke with the engineer and came up with a plan as to how to make that operate to make it more comfortable than what it was. It is by no means perfect climate controls in that building, but what we've been doing is operating the air handling units in the winter to introduce more fresh air. To be cautious with that so we don't freeze coils, but I think it's been pretty successful past month.
Great.
Anyway.
Thank you.
Sure.
Safe to say, Mr. Novak. In my mind.
So, Safe to Say is an anonymous reporting tool, tip line basically, that the state put out. Act 44 was passed last year. Part of it was that the state needed to come up with this anonymous tip line. Part of it stems from what's called the Stay Andy Hook Promise, which looks to prevent youth violence. Basically, as far as what we need to do as a school, we needed to have training for the students who are in middle school and high school on how the tip line works. We needed to create a district level team, which we've done, and then we needed to create a building level teams so that they can get the tips. Essentially, an anonymous tip gets into the website or the app, or you can phone call it in. There's a crisis level team at the state level which will vet those tips, and then they will send them out to the county 911 dispatch center and any schools that would be associated with the student in question or the area in question. And those people on the team would get the tip via email or text message. And then it would be up to us to work with County 911 to determine what the reaction is going to be. In a nutshell, that is it.
So this is from the state.
Correct.
So the anonymous tip line that we established, will that be tied into the same criteria, or how are we gonna keep ours going, or we're gonna keep ours going and do it, but that won't be tied into going to 911 countywide, or that's how we handle things here.
Yes. Now, our tip line, which is through the app, can be anonymous, but you can write your name in. With this one, it is all anonymous. And then the reaction with ours, it does go to Chief Vona and the building principals as well. Actually, the parents can pick and choose, or the student can pick and choose where they're sending it to. And so it will go through that system and they'll get the information.
And since we've had that tip line in effect, have we been able to get in front of any situations that you know of, or it really hasn't been as it has? Okay.
I think over the weekend we actually.
We had
did
two,
it.
two this weekend that they were
Okay,
investigating,
that's good,
so they were
that's
ready
good.
on Monday.
So we were a little bit ahead of the state on what we thought needed to be done.
Yes, we were.
Okay.
See, it pays to watch Good Morning America. All right, thank you. Minute 59. Community schools, Ms. Zabrowski.
Yes, sir. So with our community schools, we thought it would be a good idea to give you an update on where we're at.
So there are 5 currently, and Deal is in the process of being our 6th. And we have been notified by the United Way that there's some funding available for possibly 2 more. So with that being said, we were talking about the possibility of having them present to you, either at Committee of the Whole or at the board meeting, so that they can share what each of them are doing, because they are very unique. It's a community school, but it's in the area that they are, where their needs are, what their needs are. And so Lori Root and Mike Jarosevich are willing to come to the next Committee of the Whole in February to share out the big picture of what that looks like and where we started and where we're at now. And then if you're interested, each school can come March, April, May at Committee of the Whole or at this Committee of the Whole, depending on what your needs are and what you would like. Or they could either all come at one time. It's up to you.
My only suggestion would be if they're giving presentations about what they're doing within the schools and the community, that why wouldn't we have it at our public meeting? I mean, part of so that the public also sees what is done. I mean, I want to be aware, but I also would like the public to give those community partners the credit they deserve.
Yeah, I agree.
You're good with that?
Yeah.
Okay, so I will get back, but our hope is that the February meeting, we'll have them present the big picture to everyone, and then we can start each school after that.
If you'd like, we can just do it all at once. We only have 5 schools, right?
Currently, yes.
So if we have a presentation and then, 5 minutes from each of the buildings.
Medium size, not like everybody doing an hour, you know what I mean? Just saying. I'm talking
I
to
was
you.
faster than
I'm
Neil
talking to
right
you.
now, so I'm just saying.
Half hour.
All right, but do you want to do it in February then? Would you look,
That's
like
fine.
the
It
whole
doesn't matter.
thing in February?
If they can do it in February,
Okay,
it's
we'll shoot for February. Sounds great.
fine. Thank you. Where's the,
We have executive.
Yeah. Anybody have anything on new business or supplemental? Yes.
I just wanted to take a minute to acknowledge B's presence last night on the panel that we did here. I served on the panel with B as well. B was hit with a lot of opposition, and I thought she handled it phenomenally. She represented our school very, very well, and she was put in a lose-lose spot with some of the questions that were posed to her. And they weren't really questions; some of them were statements. And I understand why there was so much anger. There was, and they had a lot of reason to be angry. But I thought B did a phenomenal job, just explaining our school and a lot of the things that we're doing. So those were sharing them.
Thank you.
Good. Yes, John.
Just Tom's got my wheels turning. I just wanted to answer a question or two, and it made me think of something too that Brian said. Tom, the stadium was renovated in 1976, and the decision was made then to keep the track as it was, knowing the PIAA didn't recognize it as an approved track. A lap around it is 1/5 of a mile, and a standard one is 1/4 mile. To have done anything different at the time, French Street would have had to have been closed and the whole thing moved to accommodate the extra space. And in the interest of saving money and not wanting to disrupt things, that's why it wasn't done. Since then, and people advocating for an approved track, there was, when Gus Picardo was here, there was some movement made on trying to put a track at Tech or upgrade it with lights and bleachers and an artificial surface. And as it moved along, the neighbors squawked. They didn't want traffic, bright lights, and all of that. It's not that that killed it, but I mean, when that arose and then the cost of it, we got sidetracked, I think. And so I'm just saying, it's still something to shoot for. It's a good idea somewhere for us, but at that time, the neighbors didn't like the idea. And the other thing about the field is, I believe it's the Pro Football Hall of Fame, not the NFL, which there's a connection, but the Pro Football Hall of Fame would provide money to upgrade that field because it is,
Great.
it was where the Hall of Famer attended. And Ed Kissel, who runs that vacuum cleaner shop at 21st and Liberty, was a classmate of Fred's, and he's very interested and doggedly determined that we do something or keep up with that. His interest was just the sign, but there is supposedly some money available which we haven't tapped into, and he thinks we should, from the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And I know I talked to Daria, and I mentioned it at a meeting, and Daria was in contact with the Bletnikoff family, and Fred's family would be willing to do contribute to doing some upgrades of the field too. So now that Daria's not here to keep that alive, I just wanted to mention those things so that I'm pretty sure Brian, I see him nod his head, you know, but those things we should follow through on.
It's just that, I travel around to different sporting events for kids, and I remember when I was at East, we had state champion, track record, there's a bunch of other guys, and I just ran at that track last week, and it was probably the worst track that I've ever run in, ever. I mean, I was filthy with it, black, embers or whatever it's on there. It was horrible. It's almost embarrassing that that's our track. I'm not a track guy, but it was really bad. You guys know. I'm not telling you guys anything you guys don't know. But I feel bad for the athletes. Where do they go? And then they go to, say, McDowell, which is a beautiful track, or over to Brett Miller. Then they're reminded, we suck. Versus everybody else.
Which you're well aware that that's why we got 14 women, because we couldn't keep up with everything anyway, so. I mean, that's just been a long thing.
It might not be a bad idea, I'm just asking Mr. Polito, that if we're doing the renovations to the stadium, like we said, to at least, and I know that, to do that, they have to tear out that first row and stuff. That's what's been suggested in the past, to be able to get that fifth of a mile that John. So I would like to kind of, just so we know what the possibility, as long as we're doing the renovations, this is the time when, because we may not hit that stadium for another 15, 20 years. If we're going to go do the stadium, and I'm not saying
They're replacing that whole wall around there, so it's actually an opportunity.
Right, that's what I'm saying. So it might be something to look into so that we can, and if money has to be raised through donations or people who are coming forth, then now would be the time for us to try to get people involved in that,
Just to give you an idea on cost, before I left Northeast, we did get an estimate to totally redo the track there. And it was just the track, just tearing out the one that was there and replacing it was $300,000.
Right.
So, we probably are looking at 500,000 plus to do that type of work. I think it would, it depends on where we would want to go with that, and if the board would be willing to add that to the project that we're doing right now. At Bletnikoff Field, it would be less expensive because we would just be, taking that dirt out and leveling it.
The only reason I say that is
on
that when you talk about people higher income and such that would donate to a situation like that, they'd have more interest if they could be involved in the stadium than that's all.
We can bring you some proposals on that. The only concern I have is right now we have the architects moving forward with the plan we have in place.
Right.
And we can have them stop and design another one and do an estimate and bring it to you in February, but that's going to put everything off a bit, which would mean that we more likely would be looking at next year to do that.
Frank and Robbie are right, it's the opportunity, but I'm skeptical that they'll find one because I'm pretty sure you need 8 lanes to have an approved track. And there's only 4 at the stadium now for the 5th mile. And you don't just need the additional room for the lanes, you need some space, then you'd have to look up quite a bit. But I'm not saying that.
Right. Just if you could have some discussions and then just, like I said, I don't want to put a hold on things, but I think that this is a good time for us to look at it, that's all.
It doesn't seem to me that I've been at an event there that has been so packed. Like, I think the McDowell Erie game last year was the best attended game that I've seen in a long time.
Right.
And it wasn't packed. So if you had to get rid of a little bit of that first row, I think that you should
Plus,
still
you
put
have more events coming in because the track, would be utilized more often, and so there, would be a draw to the stadium. So.
Well, another tidbit from that back then, there had been 14,000 seats before 1976, and they lost 4,000. And I think that maybe was a factor not to lose more at the time by expanding the track. So It was 14,000 capacity, now it's 10 something, 10.5, I think. I'm not defending the past, I'm just saying how, that's how,
Right.
some, things grind slowly and there's,
So just have a discussion. We're not telling them to hold anything up yet.
Okay, we will get an idea of whether or not it's possible and at the cost and what it'll do as far as what we're planning for the summer.
Because, I mean, even if we put one up, with monies at Erie High, you're still gonna have to, you're gonna have to redo the fencing. You're not gonna be able to make that public if you redo everything in there. You know what I mean? How it's just, anybody can go use it right now. You gotta maintain what you put in there. You know what I mean? So everything's gonna have to be fixed and locked up and, you know what I'm saying, as far as up at Erie. It's not just like we replace the track and everybody can just go run like they normally do.
Most schools in the county do allow the public to
Yeah.
utilize them, yes.
All right.
Maybe now you can.
that was gonna be a selling point at the time, if they did fix it, to let the public, to help get the people,
Okay.
public to buy into it too.
Nothing else, we will go into, oh, yes.
Two questions. So under 6.05, I'm just wondering if anybody can tell me about the Partners in Progress program with the Achievement Center. So apparently it must have been Tammy who had said we need a little bit more service here over at Edison. And so we're putting in this Partners in Progress program through, let me pull it up for you. It's a supplemental MOU between the Erie School District and the Achievement Center. It says that the community school coordinator has expressed a need for the Partners in Progress program to assist with the building of students' self-confidence and social-emotional competencies, which I think is fantastic, but I just wondered if
It's a part-time.
I got on their website and I couldn't find anything on the Achievement Center website about the program.
Sure. Do you want me to speak to that? It would be a part-time person that is going in to work on self-esteem with some of the students that are they're saying who need that extra support.
Okay.
So,
And then the Achievement Center is hiring that person?
That's correct.
But we have the ability to say whether that person is working out or not.
Right, and so it's going to be an Achievement Center employee that's as part of the community schools. It's just an addendum to their current community schools agreement.
Okay. And then under 6.07, Community Coordinator, with the memorandum of agreement with the City of Erie and the Pennsylvania Commission on Crime and Delinquency.
That is a contract with the city that was necessary to be put into place for the receipt, I believe, of some grant monies.
Right, it's gonna help offset the cost of the blue coats.
Okay. And then, do they hire the community coordinator, or do we hire the community coordinator?
That is Brother D.
Oh, that's what I did. Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. Nothing else, we will go into executive session.